This is the first annual Gashimov Memorial in memory of Grandmaster Gashimov, who passed away recently. This is the first edition, 2014. Great loss to the chess world and to the human world as well, both. He was a really good guy and a great chess talent. He will be missed. It's funny, the good ones seem to go first. Oh well. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Wow. What a day today. I'm sure everybody knows by now, Magnus Carlsen lost again today against Timur Radjabov. Last time Magnus lost 2 in a row, 2010, 4 years ago. I think he was an 18-year-old boy or 17-year-old boy back then when he lost to Kramnik and Anand in a row. Great game. Caruana lost today again, or I should say Caruana lost, which puts Radjabov and sole leader at 3 points, with Carlsen, Nakamura, and Karyakin at 2.5 right on their heels. Anyway, folks, let's get to it. One of my favorite games to go over, a King's Indian. What else would Timur play? He's the King's Indian expert. Knight c3, bishop, e4, d6, knight to e2, castle, knight to g3. That's something different. That's a system I don't think Radjabov has ever faced before, and of course Magnus knew that. e5, d5, trying to lock that up a little bit. As we all know, later down the road, the f5 move is going to come in. At least that's Black's idea. a5, bishop e2, knight a6. That's the best way to come in because he's eyeballing this nice square right here. h4. Excellent move. And another excellent move. Close it right down with h5. Great move by Radjabov. Great move. Got my Fritz 13 computer on off screen. It's a tiny advantage for white, but these King's Indian games are the bomb, I'm telling you. Bishop g5, queen e8, queen to d2. Dead even on the computer, but this is a great position to watch. Absolutely excellent. Black's a little cramped, but of course it's always that way in the King's Indian. Knight to c5. That's a really good spot for that knight. Great outpost. And this is where Magnus, I think, goofs. The computer calls for kingside castling or bishop to e3 or queen to c2. From my understanding, he played about a minute or so and he castled long. And that could have been a huge mistake, and we're going to see why in a minute. It allows knight to g4. Now he's attacking this pawn. And it's going to be a real pain in the hop behind to defend. So he has to take the knight. And after bishop takes, he loses the bishop pair. Now, with a lot of pawns on the board, it doesn't seem like very much. But once this opens up, it's going to be deadly having the bishop pair. If h had taken instead h5, f6, h6, and that's a huge advantage, of course, it's over for Black. After bishop to g4, he has to go f3, bishop d7, bishop comes back, b6. Great solid move by Radjabov. He said he had thought about going to b6, but after pawn takes and then bishop takes, not good at all. King to b1, king to h7. I think that was a waiting move on both their parts. You see king to b1 a lot in queenside castling, but that king to h7, I think it's just a waiting move. Carlsen goes here in case anything ever opens up. This nice diagonal on the king. a4, excellent move. Stops any moves here or here. It just clamps white down. This knight is worthless. He has to do something with him. It's a terrible square on g3 now. Now knight to e2. And comes the famous f5, as we all see in King's Indian. f5. Here it comes. E takes, and of course G takes. Typical King's Indian position. Pawns advanced in front of your king. Lots of action going on. It's a minute advantage right now on the computer. Now it's even. 4. It's an even game. Rook to h3. He's trying to get the rook in. King comes back. He wants off of this diagonal now, in case he wants to push. f4. Now he could be very foolish and take, or excuse me, push. There's no way he's going to push and lock up the position. He has to leave it. And it was smart that he didn't do it. He did a really good move there. Knight. That knight can't be tolerated there. Carlsen had to take it. And f takes. And we all see why queen can't take, because bishop here wins the queen against the king. Rook to g3. Bishop g4. Now the queen can't take the pawn even if it wanted to, because now the knight's unguarded. And it's starting to collapse a little bit for Magnus. Now he thought he had a decent position up until this, and he says he totally misread the board. And what he does now for counterplay is really, I think it was great on his part to do this. He has a sacrifice the exchange, and after pawn takes, pawn comes up. Rook takes, knight to g3. And that opens up some stuff for Magnus. I think that was his best alternative considering the lousy position he had. He's going to win another pawn back. Rook to f8, queen takes. Now he's down just the exchange, but that g-pawn for black's going to be impossible to save. We're going to see how this works out. Queen to d7, great move, great move. a3, another good move by Magnus. b5, Taimur is trying to open the position up. c5, d takes, h5, excellent move. Black's up the exchange and a pawn, but you have to be careful here if you're black. Now at this point, Magnus still thinks he's somewhat in the game. He's down by more than a pawn. Should be more with the exchange, but black also has a pawn for the exchange. This is complicated. It's easy to, you're on the razor's edge on both sides. It's easy to mess up. c4. Here comes the pawns. Here they come. An interesting move by Magnus, and a very creative one I might add. h6. Forcing the bishop in a spot he doesn't really want to be in. Bishop to c5, hitting the rook, rook f7. Now this is where I think Magnus finally makes the last inaccuracy or mistake, depending on your point of view. He goes rook to f1, and his total goes up to almost a point and a half advantage for black. Knight to h5 was probably the best move. And after rook comes over, rook to h1. It's still an advantage for black, but this is going to be really tough to play. You got to be just right. And I also want to say, we're on move 33 now, rook to f1. This is where Radjabov was in serious time trouble. Rook to e8. He's just playing solid. He's trying to get to move 40. Bishop g5. Rook takes f7. It was probably the best move, trading rooks off. Magnus decides to complicate things in the time trouble on move 35 and goes knight to f5. After rook takes, queen takes, it's a big advantage for black, but in the time pressure, who knows what could happen. After knight to f5, c6. Excellent move. Excellent move. Bishop to d6. If pawn had taken, queen to d3 check, forcing the exchange of queens, it's just Doomsville. It takes away the guard for the knight. It's all of it goes bad. All of it's bad. After bishop to d6, bishop f4, Timur is just trying to hang on and get to the time control. Knight to g7. Another very good move. Only counterplay available. And this is what Magnus is looking for. Counterplay. Of course, we all see if the queen takes the bishop, he gets the exchange back. But he took it anyway. And he calculated it out. After knight takes, queen takes, c takes, and he's 2 full pawns up. And look at these pawns coming down. Wow, wow, wow. g3. Of course, bishop can't take now because he loses the rook. And in the time trouble, on move 40, Timur finds the strongest move. Rook to e7 is the second strongest move, hitting the knight. But king to h7. And after g takes, f takes. Now it's 3 pawns for the piece, but the pawns are on the 5th rank. Wow, wow, wow. Knight to d6. Magnus is looking to pick up some pawns. Knight to c7 doesn't really save anymore, because after f3, knight takes, g3, and White is doomed. He has to go knight to d6, rook f6, knight takes, f3, knight d4, king takes, king to c2, king to g5. Got to bring the king up to support these pawns. Remember, he's got the extra piece. King to d2. King to c3 doesn't really change much because after pawn push, knight, rook f3 check, king, king h4, rook h1, rook h3, and White's doomed. After king to d2, f2, and it's just slowly turning the screws. Knight, rook f3, king to c2. I mean, d1 isn't much better. King to h4. Now that h pawn's or g pawn's going to run. Rook to h1 check. Rook to h3. Rook to f1. g3. Look at this. Have you ever seen Carlsen backed up like this? King to d2. King to g4. And this is where Magnus Carlsen, current world champion, resigns. 2 losses in a row. I do have to say, though, he made some mistakes in the middle game, but I thought Timur played very, very well, especially move 35 through 40 in incredible time pressure. I got to give it to Timur. Hats off to him. Anyway, folks, that is definitely, without a doubt, game of the day today for round 5. Tomorrow is a rest day, and they pick up on Saturday for round 6. What a backup. Another great game that would have been game of the day was Nakamura and Karyakin. It wasn't for this game. That was a draw, but it was a heck of a game. I might put that on later. I'm not sure. Anyway, folks, that's the game. Great game. Go through a little bit slower. Like most King's Indian, there's a million different things to look at. Hats off to Timur Radjabov. And even in my channel, John Cordisco Chess, you'll see some of the press conference between Carlsen and Radjabov. Anyway, folks, I want you all to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. And this game definitely improves that sense.